The wind clawed through the skeletal trees, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Somewhere deeper in the forest, a soft, ragged whine cut through the night, small and desperate, like the echo of a heart breaking. I froze mid-step, rain slicking my jacket against my skin, heart hammering as I followed the sound. A rustle to my left made me flinch. Something tiny moved in the shadows, a trembling shape huddled beneath a bramble. And then I saw it, a puppy, no bigger than my forearm, shivering, soaked, eyes wide and pleading, staring at me as though it understood I might be its only hope. Its fur was matted, streaked with mud and blood, and it whimpered when I reached for it, retreating a fraction, too small to defend itself, too fragile to survive alone. The forest around us was indifferent, wind, rain, and darkness pressing down. But in that moment, I felt a magnetic pull, a sudden clarity. I couldn't leave it here. Something whispered in the storm, something old and urgent, that this encounter was no accident. The first night the puppy was left alone, the forest swallowed it whole. Darkness fell like a velvet curtain, and the trees became towering giants with jagged teeth of shadow, brushing against the rain-slicked earth. Its small paws pressed into soaked leaves, slippery and cold, sending shivers through its thin frame. Each rustle of undergrowth made it startle, ears flicking, tiny body curling into itself. Hunger gnawed its stomach, sharp and unyielding, twisting its small frame into knots of discomfort and panic. Somewhere distant, a creek chattered over rocks, water glinting like a silver promise the puppy couldn't reach. The air smelled of moss, rot, and wet bark, a scent that would haunt memory later as both threat and comfort. Its whines were soft, a plaintive cry that seemed swallowed before it left its mouth. The forest offered no answers, only the eternal watch of stars glimpsed through ragged branches and the relentless pulse of wind. As the night deepened, cold penetrated fur and bone alike, and instinct took over, curling, hiding, listening, waiting. It was alone. Truly alone, yet every sound hinted at life. Life it could not touch, life it might never know. It began to imagine voices in the shadows, and even these were cruel. It closed its eyes against the endless dark, praying for warmth it didn't yet understand. Morning arrived, gray and hesitant, dripping through the canopy like a slow sigh. Damp leaves clung to its fur as it wandered blindly, small nose pressed to the earth. Each fallen twig sounded like a crack of doom, each bird call a mocking echo of life beyond reach. Hunger became a drumbeat in its chest, and thirst painted its tongue with a dry, metallic taste. Yet even amid despair, instinct sparked. A patch of grass became a hiding place, a hollowed tree trunk a fragile shelter. The wind shifted, carrying scents both comforting and alarming. Human, animal, food, danger. And the puppy learned the first lesson of survival: move carefully, trust little, and never linger. In the distance, a faint laughter, melodic and warm, brushed the edges of perception. It recoiled instinctively, yet something within it twitched with recognition of a potential savior, though such thoughts were fleeting, dangerous, and quickly abandoned. It was a fragile thread, but it was all the hope the forest would allow. Days merged, a cycle of hunger, cold, and endless vigilance. Rain turned to mist, then back to drenching sheets that soaked the earth and soaked it through. Each step became a negotiation with pain, each breath a small victory. It discovered hollow logs and shallow burrows, places where shadows became allies. It discovered fear, too, that raw, primal terror when a branch snapped too close or a hawk shrieked overhead. And yet, even in fear, the puppy discovered resilience. Each night, curled beneath a tree, heart pounding, it whispered into the dark, survive. Just survive. It was not the sun that found the puppy, nor the birds, nor even the turning wind. It was a human, moving slowly through the forest as if aware of every rustle of leaf and snap of twig. The first encounter was cautious. The puppy froze, hackles rising, body trembling with the memory of abandonment. Hands extended slowly, scent of soap and earth and warmth mingling in the air. The puppy sniffed, unsure, and then whimpered softly, small hope tentatively unfurling. Food came next, a small scrap of meat, held gingerly, never forced, allowing the puppy to inch closer. It was a language of care it had almost forgotten existed, and yet instinct screamed this could be a trap, this could vanish. Days of patient observation passed. Each touch tentative, each gesture weighted with promise and peril. And then, slowly, courage began to blossom. The human's presence became a shield. Rain no longer only a weapon, but a curtain behind which safety waited. Sunlight glinted through the wet leaves, warming fur and skin, bathing everything in golden reprieve. Trust is a fragile flower, but the puppy began to lean into it, tentative paw steps toward love, curiosity blooming in the face of fear. A new rhythm settled into their lives. Walks along muddy paths, exploration under watchful eyes, soft murmurs exchanged in moments of quiet. The forest shifted too, from a realm of menace to a canvas of potential. Every falling leaf, every dripping branch, every whisper of wind became a shared experience. The puppy learned to respond to voices, gestures, and gentle touch, each lick, each tentative nuzzle, a dialogue of gratitude and recognition. Growth, subtle and profound, threaded its way through daily rituals. And the human, once uncertain, began to see a reflection of their own fragile hope in the creature before them, a mirror of resilience and courage yet to be fully realized. The first venture beyond immediate safety was tentative. The puppy padded into the forest clearing, nose twitching, ears alert. Fear still laced every muscle, unknown sense. Shifting shadows, sudden gusts of wind, but a thrill of independence coursed through it. It chased leaves, startled frogs, and even confronted its reflection in a puddle, barking with both challenge and curiosity. Each stumble was a lesson, each fall an opportunity to rise stronger. And through it all, the human watched, heart swelling with a complicated mix of pride, fear, and awe. The bond between them deepened, a silent acknowledgement that survival had been a shared effort. The forest responded, sun breaking through clouds, gentle breezes carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, a chorus of bird calls. Even the stream seemed to sparkle more brightly, mirroring the puppy's newfound confidence. Night still brought shadows, still whispered threats, but now courage tempered instinctive terror. It was small, fragile, and imperfect, but it was a start, a beginning threaded with possibility and a tentative sense of wonder. The puppy began to show personality, playful bursts of energy, soft whines seeking attention, tentative nudges for comfort. Each small act was a declaration: I am here, I am alive, and I will explore. The human responded with careful guidance, setting boundaries, offering reassurance, celebrating victories without erasing failures. There were moments of recklessness too. A sudden chase after a squirrel, a slip in the mud, a bark that startled birds into flight. But the forest felt less threatening with the shared heartbeat of trust echoing alongside it. Growth was no longer merely survival. It was the emergence of identity, courage intertwined with joy, and a deepening emotional resonance that touched both human and animal. Rain returned suddenly, drumming against leaves with the insistence of an unforgiving clock. Puppy, emboldened by recent growth, darted ahead, ears flapping, tail high, but the forest had its own rules. A fallen tree, slick with rain and moss, became a treacherous bridge. A sudden gust of wind rattled branches overhead. The puppy froze, small body trembling, fur plastered to its spine. Its heart pounded faster than the rainfall, tiny lungs gasping in terror. Panic surged, and instinct screamed, run, hide, survive. The human's voice rang through the trees, steady and calm, but the puppy could not see the source, could not trust fully. Fear had sharpened every sense, every rustle and splash was a threat. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the landscape in a stark, silvery blaze. The puppy yelped, skidding on mud, claws failing to grip. The roar of thunder followed, reverberating through its tiny frame, shaking bones and spirit alike. It scrambled, slipping into a shallow creek, water rising to its belly, cold biting deep into its core. The current tugged at it, insistent, merciless. Eyes wide with terror, it barked and whined, a sound raw with desperation, echoing across the empty forest. The human plunged forward, boots sinking into mud, arms extended, heart hammering with a cocktail of dread and determination. Every step felt impossible, slowed by fear, rain, and exhaustion, yet each was necessary. Finally, hands wrapped around the shaking, soaked body. Fingers pressed into fur, warmth transferred, breath mingling in a quiet reassurance. The puppy clung, tiny claws digging in, as though refusing to let go of life itself. The storm raged around them, a wall of sound and water, yet a fragile bubble of connection formed in its eye. Moments stretched, taut with vulnerability, yet threaded with raw, unspoken understanding. The puppy's trembling slowed, eyelids drooping, body sinking into the human's chest. Rescue was not a cinematic swoop or a dramatic gesture. It was the persistence of presence, the unrelenting act of staying, of holding, of refusing to abandon. And in that quiet surrender, courage was born anew, the knowledge that even in terror, there could be safety, even in chaos, there could be love. As the storm began to soften, replaced by a drizzle and gray sky, the forest seemed to exhale with them. Leaves glistened, rivulets of water traced paths along branches, and the air smelled of mud rain, and something faintly sweet, possibility. The puppy, still small, still fragile, nuzzled closer, head resting against a warm chest, eyes closing briefly. It was exhausted, soaked but alive, and in that survival, something else flickered, the tentative recognition of hope, born not from circumstance, but from an unbroken bond. The crucible of fear had tempered them both, and for the first time, the puppy could see beyond instinct and immediate survival. The morning after the storm was unlike any the puppy had known. Sunlight filtered softly through dripping leaves, turning every drop into a prism of color. The forest was alive, but not menacing, alive with quiet, tender vibrancy. Birds flitted above, their songs a gentle hymn, and the earth smelled of fresh rain, of growth, and of renewal. The puppy shook its coat, scattering droplets, and felt, for the first time in weeks, the warmth of sun against wet fur. The human watched, sitting on a moss-covered log, chest rising and falling, heart brimming with relief and wonder. Trust now flowed freely, a two-way river. The puppy approached without hesitation, nudging, pawing, testing boundaries with playful insistence. Its bark was no longer a cry of panic, but a song of presence. It bounded through puddles, mud streaking its coat, ears flopping, tail high with joy. Laughter escaped the human, light and unburdened, blending with the forest's renewed symphony. The once frightened creature explored the forest confidently, sniffing, pawing, discovering textures and scents that were once terrifying. Every leaf brushed against it like an old friend. Every stream shimmered with reflection, a metaphor for the life it had reclaimed. Even in moments of rest, curled against a human chest or lying in the warmth of sunlight, the puppy exuded growth. Eyes bright and alert, ears perked, it watched the world with curiosity and courage. The human, too, changed. Hands steadier, heart fuller, spirit lighter, eyes glimmering with shared gratitude. They walked together along forest paths, a silent rhythm of companionship guiding each step. The puppy had learned the language of touch, warmth, and presence. The human had learned the language of patience, empathy, and unwavering commitment. By afternoon, a quiet tranquility settled over the clearing. Shadows danced lazily across the wet earth. A gentle wind rustled leaves in soft applause. The puppy rested its head on the human's lap, eyes half closed, breath slow and rhythmic. Somewhere in the distance a hawk called, not as threat but as witness. The forest itself seemed to approve of their survival, their bond, their reclamation of hope. For the first time, danger felt distant. For the first time, possibility felt infinite. And in the final moments, as sunlight touched every branch, every leaf, every trembling blade of grass, the human whispered softly, more to themselves than to the puppy, "We made it." The puppy lifted its head, ears twitching, eyes meeting the gaze of a companion who had never given up. And there, in the golden stillness of the forest, a single, perfect heartbeat of understanding passed between them. Resilient, tender, and eternal. The abandoned creature had become whole, the human had become guardian, witness, and friend. Together, they stepped forward into the dawn, leaving behind shadows, storms, and fear, carrying only trust, courage, and a love too profound for words. The forest held its breath for a moment, then exhaled. Light spread across everything, and in that glow, a tiny paw pressed into soft earth, small and certain, marking not just survival but transformation. A life once forgotten had found its place, and in finding it, reminded the world, and the human, that even the smallest hearts can endure storms, embrace hope, and radiate a quiet, extraordinary magic. The forest was transformed in the soft morning light, each leaf and blade of grass dripping with rain, each puddle reflecting the first hints of a golden sun. The storm had passed, leaving the air heavy but sweet, scented with earth and new growth. The puppy padded cautiously at first, small paws pressing into softened soil, for still damp, ears flicking at the gentle rustle of leaves. Every step was measured, tentative, a dialogue between curiosity and caution. but the fear that had once gripped every movement had loosened its hold. The forest no longer seemed like a world of danger. It had become a playground of possibility, alive with textures, scents, and sounds that promised wonder rather than peril. The human followed a few steps behind, watching with a mixture of awe and relief. There was a profound quiet between them, filled not with words but with shared understanding. The knowledge that what had passed could not be undone, yet could serve as the foundation of a new life together. The puppy paused near a small stream, sniffing at the gentle flow of water, ears perking at the faint splash of a fish darting beneath the surface. It lifted a tiny paw and tapped the water, sending ripples across the reflection of the canopy, then looked back at the human, seeking permission, seeking connection. The human smiled, kneeling slowly, offering a hand that was steady, warm, and safe. The puppy stepped forward and pressed its wet nose into the palm, a small gesture loaded with trust. As the morning sun climbed, light spilled through the forest, scattering gold across the wet earth. The puppy discovered joy in motion again, pouncing through shallow puddles, shaking droplets into the air, ears flopping, tail wagging with abandon. Its bark was no longer a cry of panic but a declaration of presence, a song of life reclaimed. Each leap, each splash, each playful tumble echoed through the clearing like a tiny celebration, and the human laughed softly, breath catching in the chest, heart swelling with an unspoken pride. The bond that had begun in fear and need had blossomed into something richer, tender, and enduring. They walked together along winding paths, the puppy darting ahead in small bursts of courage before returning for guidance. Every small interaction, a paw brushing against a hand, a nuzzle of the nose, a glance exchanged, was a testament to resilience and trust. The forest, once an indifferent backdrop, now seemed alive with witness birds perched along branches, singing in gentle accompaniment. Sunlight fractured through leaves, dancing across the puppy's coat. Soft breezes carried scents of pine, moss, and damp earth, filling every sense with reassurance. It was a world of quiet miracles, of fragile beauty, where fear had been transformed into hope. As the day stretched toward afternoon, a profound stillness settled. The puppy curled against the human's chest, eyes half closed, breathing deep and rhythmic, comforted by warmth and safety. The human rested a hand along its back, feeling the faint shiver of wet fur beneath steady fingers, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. Every scar, every trembling paw, every tearful whine of the past days had led to this, an unspoken understanding that life could be hard, unforgiving even. But love and presence had the power to heal and protect. The puppy's small heart beat against theirs, a tiny drum of survival, courage, and new beginnings. In the soft glow of late afternoon, the forest seemed to hold its breath with them. Sunlight fell in long, golden shafts, illuminating dew-laden leaves and the small prints of muddy paws in the soil. The puppy lifted its head, eyes meeting the human's gaze, and for the first time, there was no hesitation, no instinctive fear, only trust, joy, and the quiet knowledge that it was home. The human whispered softly, almost to themselves, "We made it," and the puppy responded with a gentle lick, as if affirming the promise of life, safety, and shared adventure. The forest exhaled alongside them. The storm had ended, not just in weather but in the spirit. The world was alive again, vibrant and expansive, filled with sunlight, possibility, and the unspoken magic of second chances. Tiny paws pressed into soft sun, dappled mud, leaving prints that would fade but never erase the memory of endurance. Together, they stepped forward into the forest, side by side, a life once fractured now whole, carrying the quiet knowledge that love had survived the storm. Courage had triumphed over fear, and the smallest heart could endure, grow, and shine brilliantly against the backdrop of the world. The day ended not with fanfare, but with the gentle, luminous glow of life reclaimed. The puppy rested against the human's chest, tail flicking occasionally, eyes closing as soft light painted the clearing. The forest remained awake, a witness to resilience, to love, to the profound, delicate miracle of survival and trust. And in that serene, golden silence, it was impossible not to feel the extraordinary magic that had begun in fear, endured the storm, and culminated in this perfect, quiet new dawn. The forest had changed, and so had they. Weeks had passed since the storm, and the puppy, once trembling, abandoned, and alone, now moved with confidence, a rhythm in its step that spoke of trust and joy. Its fur glistened in sunlight, clean, soft, and alive, ears perked at the slightest sound, tail curling high with playful energy. Every puddle became a mirror, every patch of moss a playground, and every leaf carried a story. The puppy no longer flinched at shadows or sudden gusts. It had learned the language of the forest, one of cautious exploration, curiosity, and wonder. The human walked beside it, slower now, taking in the forest not as a challenge to navigate, but as a companion in life's quiet moments. They paused on a hill, looking out over a small valley where mist lingered above the trees, sunlight spilling in gold streaks. The puppy bounded ahead, sniffing, circling, returning with eyes bright, tongue lolling, a silent invitation to share in the joy of discovery. The bond that had begun in fear had become effortless, threaded through simple gestures, a nudge of the nose, a paw on a hand, a shared glance. Time passed with a gentle rhythm. Days were filled with exploration, playful discovery, and quiet reflection. Nights became moments of tender warmth, the puppy curled against the human's chest, body rising and falling with steady breaths, ears flicking at the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. Memories of abandonment had not faded entirely. The shadows of fear lingered occasionally, in quick flinches at loud noises or hesitation near rushing streams. But these moments were brief, tempered by love, safety, and the knowledge that they were no longer alone. One evening, as the sun sank low, painting the sky in streaks of amber and rose, the human paused near the creek where they had first rescued the trembling creature. The puppy splashed eagerly, sending droplets into the last light of day, ears flopping, tail wagging. For a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. The forest around them whispered softly in the wind, the water babbled over stones, and birds called in muted chorus. It was a quiet, magical affirmation. Life had been hard, but survival and love had triumphed. The human knelt, running fingers through the puppy's fur, heart full of unspoken gratitude and awe. "We found each other," they whispered, voice trembling slightly, "and nothing can take that away." The puppy pressed close, a soft whine of acknowledgement, eyes bright and trusting. Together they sat in the fading light, shadows stretching, warmth lingering, knowing that the forest would always echo their story. A story of fear transformed into courage, of abandonment transformed into connection, and of a small, fragile life transformed into one full of joy, trust, and extraordinary magic. As twilight deepened, the puppy's soft breath mingled with the gentle hum of the forest. The wind rustled the leaves above, whispering secrets of endurance, of love, and of the quiet miracles that life sometimes offers. And there, in the serene, golden half-light, the human and the puppy rested side by side, hearts beating in harmony, a living testament to the beauty of resilience, the power of trust, and the enduring wonder of a life reclaimed. Seasons shifted in the forest, subtle but unmistakable. The air carried a crispness of autumn, leaves turning to amber and crimson, drifting lazily to the forest floor, layering it like a quilt of fire and gold. The puppy, now more dog than fragile creature, moved with the quiet grace of one who had weathered storms and emerged whole. Each step was deliberate, confident, playful. Paws sank into moss and leaves with familiarity, each sound met with alert curiosity rather than fear. The human followed, slower now, savoring the rhythm of companionship, every glance exchanged carrying a language older than words. There were mornings of pure light, where the sun pierced the canopy, dusting the forest with warmth and glittering motes, and the puppy would leap through the rays, joy uncontained, tail a pendulum of energy. Other days brought rain, soft and steady, washing the leaves and fur alike, but the puppy no longer recoiled. It danced instead, shaking droplets into the air, ears flopping, eyes bright, laughter almost audible in its bark. The human watched, chest swelling with quiet awe, reflecting on how fragile life had been and how strong it had become. The forest had become a shared sanctuary, alive with echoes of resilience and renewal, each stream, tree, and stone a witness to their journey. Evenings held a tender magic of their own. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky with shades of violet and gold, the human and puppy would sit atop a hill, overlooking the vast, breathing forest. The puppy rested its head on the human's lap, eyes half closed, and occasionally lifted a paw to press against a hand, a tiny gesture full of love and trust. Memories of fear and abandonment were still there, like faint shadows at the edge of consciousness, but they no longer defined the puppy's existence. Courage had rooted itself deeply, nurtured by unwavering care, and a bond that had grown stronger with every heartbeat. Sometimes, in the quiet hours of dusk, when the wind whispered through branches and leaves, the human imagined the life the puppy had left behind. A life of neglect, of fear, of loneliness, and shivered at how close it had come to vanishing entirely. And yet, in that same moment, a profound sense of wonder settled over them both. The forest had offered sanctuary, the human had offered presence, and together they had carved a life from the wilderness, full of joy, trust, and subtle, radiant magic. The world beyond the forest could wait. Here, in this glowing, eternal now, there was nothing urgent but presence, the puppy's steady breathing. The warmth of fur under fingers, the soft sigh of wind through the trees, the distant call of birds returning home. And in that silence, they understood a truth too vast for words. The smallest hearts, when met with love and unwavering patience, could endure storms, embrace life fully, and create a ripple of beauty that stretched far beyond themselves. As twilight deepened into night, fireflies emerged, casting tiny points of light across the forest floor. The puppy rose, tail wagging, ears alert, bounding through the dancing lights, the human following with quiet laughter. They moved together, steps light and synchronized, a pair no longer defined by fear but by the deep, sustaining magic of trust and love. And in that forest, alive with whispering leaves, shimmering streams, and the soft glow of dusk, their story, once fractured, once filled with despair, had become eternal, a story of survival, courage, and the extraordinary, quiet miracles that occur when two souls find each other and refuse to let go. The final image lingered in the mind as they disappeared into the forest's embrace. A small paw pressing into soft earth, sunlight glinting on fur, eyes bright with life, and beside it, a human hand resting gently, steady and warm. A life saved, a heart transformed, a bond unbreakable. And the forest held its breath, carrying their story on the wind, whispering forever. Time passed in gentle increments, measured not by clocks but by sunlight through the canopy, the rhythm of leaves in the wind, and the steady pulse of companionship. Seasons cycled. Summer's warmth gave way to autumn's amber, winter's frost, and the tender blush of spring. But the bond forged in fear and nurtured in love remained unchanged, resilient as the ancient trees surrounding them. The puppy, now fully grown yet retaining its spirited innocence, moved with fluid grace, every step a testament to survival and joy. Its coat glimmered with health, ears always alert, eyes reflecting intelligence and affection, tail curling in playful delight at the simplest of pleasures. The human watched with a quiet, profound wonder. Days spent exploring the forest, resting by streams, or simply sitting in silence became rituals of trust and mutual understanding. In moments of pause, the human would trace lines along the puppy's fur, feeling the rhythm of steady breaths and warm presence. Occasionally, the puppy would stop mid-step, glance over its shoulder, and meet their gaze with a look that spoke volumes, gratitude, love, and a recognition that no bond could ever be broken. The forest, too, had become a partner in their lives, alive with witness-rustling leaves, whispered secrets of endurance, streams gurgled a lullaby of constancy, and the scent of earth and growth imbued every corner with a sense of permanence. Evenings were steeped in quiet magic. Fireflies emerged, tracing ephemeral paths through the twilight, reflecting in the puppy's eyes like living stars. The human and puppy would sit together atop a familiar hill, watching the sun dissolve behind distant ridges, shadows lengthening, colors bleeding across the sky in a painter's sweep. They spoke little, for none was necessary. Trust and love had woven a language beyond words. Occasionally, the puppy would nuzzle close, pressing a paw against a hand, a heartbeat of connection in the stillness. Memories of fear lingered only as faint shadows, reminders of fragility now softened into wisdom, resilience, and compassion. The forest seemed to pulse with life itself, a living witness to the extraordinary bond between them. Birds called from high branches, the breeze carried scents of pine, moss, and rain. Tiny creatures scuttled through undergrowth. Each day became a meditation on presence, on the small, luminous moments that stitched life together, a splash of water, a glinting ray of sun, the soft sigh of leaves overhead, And in these moments, the human realized something extraordinary. Love and trust were not fleeting. They were enduring forces capable of transforming fear into courage, isolation into belonging, abandonment into home. Night would settle eventually, stars gleaming above in a velvet sky. The puppy would curl against the human, tail tucked, ears relaxed, eyes closing in peaceful rhythm. The human would whisper a gentle word of thanks into the darkness, and the forest would respond with a hushed symphony of nocturnal life, the call of an owl, the rustle of branches, the faint murmur of a distant stream. Together they existed in harmony, proof that life, even when fractured and abandoned, could be reclaimed, healed, and transformed into something magical. And so, in the heart of the forest, forever alive with light, shadow, and the quiet music of growth, the puppy and human thrived. Their story became legend, not in loud proclamations, but in the subtle miracles of everyday life, the wag of a tail, the brush of a paw, the warmth of a shared heartbeat. Seasons would continue, storms would come and go, but the love and trust that had begun in fear endured, immortalized in every sunbeam, every puddle, every whispering leaf. And in that eternal forest, their lives intertwined, a living testament to courage, resilience, and the quiet, profound magic of companionship that lasts forever. The sun sank low, painting the forest in a wash of amber and gold, shadows stretching long and soft across the mossy floor. The puppy, once abandoned and trembling, now bounded freely, ears perked, tail a metronome of joy, every movement radiating life reclaimed. The human followed, slower, savoring each moment, each gesture, each shared heartbeat. They paused on a small hill, overlooking a clearing where light danced across streams and leaves. The puppy trotted back, pressing its wet nose into the human's hand, eyes bright and trusting. For a moment, time itself seemed to pause. The forest held its breath, listening to the quiet symphony of wind in branches, the distant calls of birds, and the soft, steady rhythm of two hearts intertwined. The human knelt, fingers threading through fur, voice barely a whisper, or made it together. The puppy responded with a gentle nuzzle, and in that small, perfect exchange was everything: trust, love, courage, and the knowledge that they would never be alone again. The camera lingers as they walk slowly into the forest, side by side, paw prints and footprints mingling in the soft earth, light scattering through the canopy like a promise. Seasons would change, storms would come and go, but the bond forged in fear, nurtured in care, and strengthened through shared survival would endure. The forest, alive and watching, whispered of resilience and quiet miracles, a testament to the extraordinary magic of connection. And as twilight embraced them, the world felt still, luminous, and infinite, proof that even the smallest heart, when met with love, can endure the darkest storms and step boldly into forever.